One of the most important things to understand when studying the Bible is the timeline, or what we might call Bible chronology. And how do we nail down various dates and events that happened in the Bible? And there are many different ways that people have tried to do this, and I might just address one in particular, which I believe is far more accurate than many of the others. Things like nailing down when Adam and Eve were driven out of the Garden of Eden. We don't know how long they were in the garden, but we do know from the Bible when they were driven out. We'd like to know the lifespan of Enoch, where that fitted, because he's an important person. Then, of course, we come up to the Great Flood, and when it covered the world that then was, as is described in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 6, the world that then was being overflowed with water perished. We'd like to be able to pin down Abraham in particular, such a very important person. When he was born, what was his lifespan on the spectrum? Then, of course, we go to Jacob, when he moved down to Egypt. Then we go, and I guess a number one date people are trying to find is the Exodus. When did the Exodus happen? If you look it up online, you'll find many, many varying different dates on when the Exodus was. And today, hopefully, I can point out that the Bible pins it down very accurately. You don't have to try to work it out all that hard. Maybe also, once you've got the Exodus date, then you've only got to take off 40 years and you've got the Battle of Jericho. So the various methods that have been used, maybe for many people that believe in the Great Pyramid and the passageways, there's a timeline within that, and it's called measuring things by pyramid inches. Now, I have had a look at that, but to me it's very inaccurate again, mainly because the great pyramidologists, the great men who've studied it, they all differ. They come up with different dates, so it's hard. You maybe could pick one. Another one is to try to work through the judges. Well, that would be very difficult because the judges are all over the place. 6 different dynasties, all different tribes. Sometimes there was a judge, sometimes there wasn't a judge for a while. So to try and work out a chronology using the life or the book of Judges would also be difficult. What about the kings of Israel, northern Israel, the 10 tribes? Again, a number of different dynasties, and we see there, in actual fact, they were the ones that had the 6 different dynasties. The judges were from just different tribes. But they finished in 721 BC when they were overrun by the Assyrians, and we don't have an accurate per king like we do with the kings of Judah. But before we go to the kings of Judah, the other way that people try to work out the Exodus is to work it backwards from the pharaohs. Work out which pharaoh it was. I mean, we look at the film called The Exodus. They got the wrong pharaoh. They talk about Ramesses. Well, he was a great guy, but he wasn't the pharaoh of the Exodus, about 200 years out. And then, of course, we come to what we believe, or I believe, is the most accurate, and that is dating backwards from the kings of Judah, because the kings of the 2 tribes house of Judah are accurately recorded, king, by one queen, and so on. When I was looking into this a few years ago, I thought, now I wonder what is the date of the Exodus, and I got thinking about 1066 AD with the Battle of Hastings, and I thought, it's a great time period in the Bible called the 7 times punishment. What would happen if I went backwards from 1066? What year would I come up with? 2520 backwards. And you come up with the year 1455. And when I came up with 1455 BC, I thought to myself, is that the Exodus? But when I did a bit more research, I found a guy online who I don't really know much about, and doesn't matter, because what he came up with has got nothing to do with who he was or whatever. Funny name, his name was Lujak Skylark. He was an American. On April the 18th, 2012, at 1945 time exactly, he posted a very interesting, simple way you could work out the exact date of the Exodus. And what he did is he dated things backwards from 586 BC. Why 586 BC? Because that is the year of the destruction of Jerusalem by the Babylonians, and it's a year that is not disputed by most people, like all both secular and biblical scholars, historians, archaeologists, whichever one you pick. Nobody seems to argue, maybe a year here or there, but nearly everybody says 586 BC. Now, once you've got that in your mind, that Jerusalem was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC, you then have all the periods of time that all the kings of Judah reigned, starting with the last bad king. His name was Zedekiah, and it says he reigned for 11 years. So you go back 11 years and keep going back through the kings of Judah, and you don't have to go back any further than the reign of King Solomon, and I'll explain why. So if you can go from 586 back, bang, 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 and get the 40-year reign of Solomon, and once you've got the 40-year reign of Solomon, according to that time chart, you come up with this amazing scripture in 1 Kings chapter 6 and verse 1. And it says there, "And it came to pass in the 480th year of the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month Ziph, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of the Lord." So all of a sudden we have a connection to the Exodus. It says from 480th year, from the 4th year of the reign of Solomon. Well, using that simple way of going back from 586 BC through the kings of Judah, you work out that the 4th year of the reign of Solomon was 1015 BC. You can't really change it, not even a year. Year by year by year, you nail down the reign of Solomon, and then you find the 4th year of his reign was 1015 BC. All you've got to do then is add the 480 from that verse, the 480th year, and you come to 1495. So according to accurate Bible chronology, not through the judges, not through the kings of Israel, not through pyramid inches, and not through trying to work out which pharaoh. And by the way, the pharaohs are all over the place. Very hard to work anything back from the pharaohs. You end up with 1495 BC. Now we know in the Old Testament, it says in the books of Chronicles and so on, it talks about in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. Repeated in the New Testament in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 1, it says, "In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established." The reason I'm making this point is when you come up with a date, you would like it to connect with other dates, to lock into things. And it just so happens that 1495 is an amazing number because it is the adding up of the ancient Hebrew alphabet is 1495, because each letter has a numeric value. When you look at Psalm 119, you know it's all broken up into various groups of 8 verses. 176 verses all told, by far the biggest chapter in the whole Bible, or Psalm, whichever way you want to describe it. And at the beginning of each of those 8 verses is a letter of the ancient Hebrew alphabet. So it links up, you might say, 1495 links up with the ancient Hebrew alphabet of 1495, links up with Psalm 119. And the other fascinating thing is when I originally wanted to work backwards from the Battle of Hastings, it connects with that. As I've already stated, that when I went backwards from 1066, 2520, I came to 1455, which ended up being the Battle of Hastings, the Battle of Jericho. And it's interesting that exactly 2,520 years after the initial entry into the Promised Land in the time of Joshua, exactly that 7 times punishment era later, 1066, the Battle of Hastings, that all connects. 1455 for the Battle of Jericho, back 40 years, 1495 to the Exodus. So there you are. It all links in 2 or 3 witnesses. You want things that lock in with other dates. So now once we've got 1495 established as the Exodus, we can keep going backwards, and we can work out the life of Moses. We can work out the life of the major patriarchs, going backwards from Jacob to Isaac, and particularly to Abraham. And you find out, using that Bible chronology from what's within the pages of the Bible, you end up with Abraham being born 2000 BC. And his calling was 75 years later in 1925 BC, and we know a lot dates through to the children of Israel in the Promised Land, the 430 and the 400. I won't try and explain that, but that was a time period in the Bible. Once you've got the life of Abraham, you can keep going backwards, and from all the different, because I got all the life ancestors from Abraham, right back to Adam, right back to the flood, and you can keep going backwards, and you end up there with another linchpin date, and that is in Genesis chapter 11 verse 10. It says, "These are the generations of Shem, the son of Noah. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood." So once you nail down the life of Arphaxad, you've only got to then work out of Shem, I should say, that 2 years after that, in the second year of when he was born, we come to the year of the flood. So he was born 2 years after the flood in 2292 BC. 2 years before 2290 then is the year of the flood. Keep going backwards. We come to the life of Noah, and that he lived from 1942 BC to 2892 BC. So you got exactly pinned down the time of Noah and the flood. I just noticed there 1942 BC, and I realised, of course, that 1942 AD is an extremely important year, which I'm sure you're aware of. So again, using all the recorded lives of the early patriarchs, we can establish the life of Enoch, and we want to talk about him later on, a very important person, a man who walked with God, that his lifespan went from 2961 BC back to 3326 BC, 365 years. I won't go into why he's so important. I'll do a separate video on Enoch, and particularly the connection with the Great Pyramid. And then we finally come to working out, going back from Enoch, the seventh from Adam. It's quite easy to establish when Adam and Eve were driven out of the Garden of Eden. We don't know how long they were in the garden. They could have been there for thousands of years. We don't know. But finally we can establish that Adam and Eve were driven out of the Garden of Eden in, not as everyone would like it to be, 4000 or 4000 BC. Everybody wants that to be. By the way, the difference of the 4 years is because of the birth of Jesus being a little bit confusing. He was born 4 years before he was born, according to the calendar, because Herod was still alive when Jesus was born and tried to kill him, as you know. But we do know then that Herod died 4 BC. So people would like it to be 4000 or 4004 BC, but in actual fact it does not work out to that. Close, it works out to 3948 BC, 52 years off 4000 BC. So it's fun when you do it through the Bible. You might not be able to work from the pharaohs back to the Bible, but I tell you what, you can work from the Bible once you've got the chronology right through to the pharaohs. You can find out who the pharaoh was at the time of Moses, who the pharaoh was at the time of Joseph, and so on. So Bible chronology is very accurate when you just follow the dates and the lives of people in the Bible, and it really cannot be disputed. The Bible is accurate as also. That is the way to do it. 586 BC, a linchpin date, work backwards, and you can tie it all down. So there's some food for thought again. Thank you.